Hello everybody, this is Hammer Striker here. I've got a couple HK 9mm on the table. I've got a P30 SK and I got a VP9 SK. Please don't forget to check out our website. Go to our affiliates page. You'll find discount codes for things like Mantis Axe and Core belts. Link to that cool little bore light that we use for lighting up the barrels. Use those links. It will often save you money, never will cost you any additional money, and helps the channel. And please consider supporting the channel on Player, formerly Utreon, where we can do some types of videos that are no longer allowed on YouTube. And to be a little more specific, this is the SK-S V3, and that the V3 isn't necessarily a version of a revision of the gun, but it's the type of trigger that's in it. And this one is a B version, and that has the button release as opposed to the paddle. So the VP9, it was available in either the paddle or the button, but the button is taking over because that's what's popular in the US. And the P30 is only available with the paddle. And the paddle works well. I can get it with the other side because it's ambi. So I hit it and the magazine drops. My finger is really, if I'm going after it, my finger is nowhere near the trigger. The trigger's way up here. And they work well. One of the things that you'll find is the magazines are interchangeable between these. The paddle's a little bit small, but as I mentioned, the magazines are interchangeable. So unlike Walther with the PPQ, where you had to get all new magazines if you changed version, this one they're interchangeable. And on the button release, the button is equally easy to get to, but it's recessed enough and far enough forward you're not likely to get it by accident. I have to kind of wrap my thumb around it a little bit to get it. So take both of these, of course, are unloaded. So the magazines, it comes in a number of variants. So they have a 10-round magazine, they have a 12-round magazine, they have a 13-round magazine, a 15-round magazine, and a 17-round magazine like you see in this full-size VP9B. And they're just like clocks, they'll take the magazines of the larger variants readily up and down. And they do have the different sleeves that integrate with the grip. So depending on how much capacity you want, how small you want it to be, would determine which magazine you should put it in. So I just picked up one of the magazines that happened to be the 10, but it didn't matter. Picked it up and of course it'll fit and work. They both have 3-slot Picatinny rails. They both have 3-dot sights. Now the sights on this one have been replaced. This one is the factory sights, and they're 3-dot night sights. The front sight has a ring. This one came originally with 3-dot luminescent sights, so they were just a painted dot. You'll notice the VP9 has these wings, make it easy to get a hold of the slide. So as you're sliding your hands back, there's something to catch on beyond just the serrations. And if you have weaker hands, that can make it a lot easier to operate the slide. All the controls are ambi, so you have a slide stop, slide release on both sides. The magazine on the VP9 is reversible. It's not full ambi. And on the P30, of course, it is full ambi right from the factory. And of course you have the slide stop, slide release. And if you have the version of the P30 with the safety itself is also ambi. Now one of the things, I've mentioned versions a couple times. When you go to their website on both of these guns, there's a long list of variants. It's different combinations of magazine sizes, with or without the safeties, the sights. So there's like a dozen different variations of both of these. But one of the things that's interesting about these, and kind of why I'm actually comparing them, is it's rare that you have almost the identical gun, for other than some cosmetic differences, that you get to choose the type of trigger you got, whether it's hammer or striker. As you can see with the hammer sticking out, this is the P30 is a hammer gun, and the VP9 is a striker gun. Now the P30 is only available in hammer, and the VP9 is only available in striker. But when you look at these guns from a feature perspective, ergonomics, the grips, they're so close together that you're almost being able to say, well, I want the hammer version or the striker version, and it's just picking between the two models, and everything else is very similar. They both have these replaceable grip panels, and it's kind of interesting the way they work, because you can replace all pieces of this, and you can do it in different combinations. So you can have a larger hump back here but thinner panels, and they both have it and they come with it. So there's 3 of each of these, each of the components. So 3 set this panel, 3 of that panel, 3 of the back strap, and you swap them around as you see fit. And you have that same thing on the VP9, and both of them do have finger grooves, of course, and both have front and rear serrations. So ergonomically, they're almost identical. The one thing that is different is the VP9, there is an optics-ready version of it available. There is not on the P30. It's an older design, and there's components here that would interfere with the optics system, or being able to put an optic on it. So about the only thing that's going to make you have to choose VP9 over the P30 would be if you want optic-ready capability, because that's the only one that has it. So let me kind of spread these out a little bit so that you can see them laying flat side by side and get an idea of what they look like. And to make it easier to actually see it, I'll get them both to sit flat. You could see that if you really didn't know the difference or see the hammer sticking out, if I hit the hammer, it'd be kind of hard to tell the difference between the two. From a size perspective, it's equally hard to tell the difference between the two. I'm going to put the hammer down so that they're flat. And I'm going to put same size magazine in both of them. And what you'll see is that the height is identical. So they're both 4.57 inches tall. The P30 is a hair shorter. It comes in at 642 versus 661. So this is the P30 back here. And it's 0.05 inches thinner. And so you can see that really there's not much of a difference. Size isn't going to make a difference in which one of these you're going to be able to comfortably carry. Weight may make a slight difference. It's just under an ounce difference, with the P30 being a little bit heavier, the more complicated fire control mechanism. Now what might make a difference is the trigger. So let's demonstrate the triggers. So the VP9 has a little bit of take-up. It's a little bit scratchy, but it's not bad. A defined wall, but it's very light, very crisp, very short. The reset, there's a little bit of take-up to get back on the wall no matter how you do it. There's a little bit of bounce at the end. But again, you get that nice short crisp break. And it's got a really nice reset. No double strike capability. It is a striker gun, and most of them don't have that feature. Now if I move to the P30, out of the magazine. So I'm going to start with it hammer down. So it's got a medium length, fairly light for a double action pull. And of course it is a DASA, so you have restrike capability. But if I had pulled the trigger and it had cycled, then you would have not a super short reset, but it's not bad. It's kind of in the middle. And then a take up to get back to kind of what it would be a soft wall. So there's not really a defined wall. You don't hit a known wall and then pull through it. It just kind of smoothly pulls back and breaks. And I'll do that again so you can see it. A little bit of take up, but actually more take up. It feels like it's going to hit a wall, but it doesn't. Now I'm all the way at the back, and then it breaks and it's very light. So it has a very nice trigger, but it has a very different trigger. So trigger might make the difference. Now one of the things I'm going to do, I'm going to cock the gun, and there's a decocker button here on the back of it, and I can hit that with my thumb and I can decock it. And one thing you'll notice is the hammer didn't go all the way down. It's on kind of like a quarter cock position. That's part of the drop safety. So if you handle this correctly and you drop the hammer with the decocker, then it'll be on that quarter cock position. It'll be safe. You can operate the safety regardless of the cocked position. So you can carry this cocked and locked. You can hit the decocker and carry it hammer down. So of course at this point it'd be double action, or you could thumb it. So you really have the flexibility to carry this any way you want. And unlike some double action, single action guns, the decocker makes it a safe way to have it in either configuration. And the safety will work in either configuration. And regardless of whether the safety is on or not, you can cycle the slide. So the safety does what it's supposed to do without interfering with anything that you want to do, and you get to carry this any way you want. This, standard striker gun. So it'll cycle, it'll be cocked. It has the typical internal safeties, the inertial toggle, and a drop safety piston. So this would be no different than Glocks or any of the others, where it's designed integrally to be drop safe, but it has to be in a cocked position to function. So you've chambered it, or if you don't have a round in the chamber and you cycle it, then of course it cocks during that process. So I would say between these, the biggest difference is that trigger. And that's probably going to make the decision. You're going to like one or the other, and you're going to choose the gun based on that. Really not any of the other characteristics. From a price perspective, the P30, which I have here, which they still make, is MSRP is between $869 and $979, depending on which variant you get. And as I mentioned, there's a whole lot of variants. This has a little bit broader spectrum. It goes from MSRP of $870 to $1029, and then it jumps up to $1270 if you get the version that's optics ready with a hollow sun right from the factory. Street price on these that I'm seeing is $700 to $750 for the basic variants like you see here. So they're going well under MSRP. And I think it's because the Micro 9s are kind of taking over the category of 10 and 12 round guns. But they're smaller, they have thinner grips, and they're a little bit harder to hold on to. So the advantage, of course, is that they're smaller and lighter, but the disadvantage is that they're smaller and lighter. Something like this is really easy to control and really easy to shoot well. The only issues I've ever had with any of the VP series and potentially the P30 is they don't like weak ammo. Other than that, they just work. They're good quality, reliable guns, and they kind of have proven the test of time and worked well through that. One quick note on the P30, I demonstrated the V3 trigger, the DASA. There's a V1 trigger that's called LEM, or Light Law Enforcement Modification, from the factory. It's a factory design. If you can find one, it has a different trigger. I can't demonstrate that because I don't have one, but it is different. So again, I think if you're shopping for this type of gun and you're looking at the HK line, what you need to do is find an example of each and try it out and see which trigger you like the best, because that's how you're going to choose the one you're going to want. Beyond that, if you like our videos, please give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe, click that bell up there to be notified if you do. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Player, Rumble. We're pretty much everywhere. And thank you.